Hello, my name is Sophia Boych, and I decided to do my project on gender stereotypes. So I chose Sex and the City Season 4, Episode 10, Big Girls Don't Cry. Unfortunately, the audio for my link won't work, but I did write some notes. I have the link right here, but the audio won't work, unfortunately, but I did write some notes about the video. So in this scene, Samantha meets Richard Wright, and they kind of meet, and she has an encounter with him where um, he tells her that he doesn't hire women who cry in the office, and kind of insinuates that the men who he works with would be uncomfortable working next to a woman. So she goes to lunch with her friends and recounts of what happened in that meeting, where she says how she's unapologetically her bold self, and she tells the girls, she responds confidently and asserts that she never cries, especially not at work. The girls react with a mix of curiosity but also in disbelief, which creates a discussion about women crying in professional settings. Carrie and Miranda add in and say how when they cry at work, it's seen as a sign of weakness in a male dominated environment. But Charlotte shows that showing emotion shouldn't be a bad thing. Samantha stands firm on her decision, declaring that emotions have no place in business and expressing pride in her ability to maintain composure under pressure. And this conversation, in my opinion, showed how there's many different attitudes of vulnerability and professionalism in women. Samantha embodies the quote, like tough as nails approach, while the other women see crying as natural and a human response. And it has showed um, that gender dynamics and expectations in the workplace are something that many women experience way differently and have many different experiences in. And I think this scene was a great choice because it showed how so many women have different experiences and ideas and beliefs about what happens with gender in a professional setting. So, how it relates to gender stereotypes. First, femininity versus professionalism. Samantha is open about her sexuality and confidence, which is something that's empowering for her, but is seen as unprofessional in a male dominated corporate setting. So, as I said before, when I explained the video, I think Samantha is a character that's very open about who she is as a person. And I think she really does things without shame. And so, in the setting where everything that feels empowering to her is kind of looked at as weak and unprofessional, it's something that kind of makes her take a step back. And I think that's seen in the real world a lot, where women are kind of seen as um, not dirty, but they're kind of seen as like it's really taboo for a woman to be expressive about her sexuality. So the next is conflicting expectations. So the girls face a quote double bind where being assertive leads to criticism, but acting more feminine risks being seen as weak. So I've seen a quote before. It's actually from Taylor Swift, but women can only overreact. A man can react. A woman can only overreact. And I think I wanted to tie this into the conflicting expectation because I think it ties in and relates to gender stereotypes a lot, where men are allowed to overreact and be angry and throw things and be mad, and for them it's seen as like, oh, he just needs to cool off, or he just needs to kind of let his anger out. But for women, if they cry or they get upset about something that's something to go their way, they're seen as overreacting, and they're seen as upset and emotional. And I think that definitely ties into this scene. So fear of emotional judgment. um, Samantha does not want to cry in front of her colleagues to avoid being stereotyped as too emotional or weak. So I think this also kind of ties into what I was saying earlier. Men men and women can both um, relate to the too emotional stereotype. For women, if they're too emotional, it's we can't work in a setting with other people because we will be too emotional and we'll cry. And if we get our period, the whole office has to hear about it. But men, if they cry, then they're kind of seen as very weak and unable to, oh, what's the word? Unable to kind of be a man. And that's a big thing when it comes to emotion is be a man. So I think that's that kind of I wanted to put fear of emotional judgment in to kind of play both parts of men and women. So undermining sexual agency. Samantha's sexuality, which is usually empowering for her, becomes a liability to the corporate space where it is used to question her professionalism. That kind of ties into my first femininity versus professionalism, but I think it's super important to talk about because for a man, if he's sexual and he's loud with it, he's seen as a bachelor and someone that could get a lot of girls. But for women, it's seen as something that can hinder um, all the hard work that they've created over the few years, which Samantha has because she's seen as such a powerhouse. So I wanted to add this in as well. So I wasn't able to put this scene in, but um, there is a scene in this episode where at the end, near the end, when she's going back for the interview, and he tells her, "You slept with my architect," and she says it was a year ago. It didn't matter. He tells her, "Other than that, if that didn't happen, you would have gotten the job." And she says, "If I was a man, you would have shaken my hand, bought me a scotch, and given me a key to an office." And I think this line always stuck with me from the first time I watched it. And it kind of showed the double standard that exists within the male dominated work environment and how Samantha recognizes that if she was a man, her confidence and assertiveness would be celebrated instead of criticized, which I kind of mentioned earlier. So I think that men are usually rewarded with respect and authority, while Samantha's confidence and how openness she was about her sexuality was used against her. Um, I think that that scene was so important to, and I'm gonna go back on this slide. I think that scene, that line, has always stuck with me because it's just something that's so true and kind of relatable as a woman, where it's like I do one thing and I get criticized for it. A man does the same thing and he gets rewarded for it. Um, so I think Samantha called out a system that values her for her skills, but judges her based on stereotypes about femininity and sexuality. I think her experience speaks to broader challenges that many women are facing and what they face to be accepted as equals in a professional setting. I think Samantha's line is very powerful because it shows how corporate culture favors men because they're men, which is rewarding to them, but penalizes women for having the same exact traits they have. So I think this show in general is just such um, kind of an ode to gender stereotypes and how, especially in the era and the year that it came out in, which was like 1999, early 2000s, I want to say, it's just such a hot take on women kind of playing these male dominated roles and acting like men. So that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this. So that is my project about gender stereotypes. I think it's something that women and men can kind of have their own take on. And I think it's a great thing to get educated about and kind of know as a woman what and a woman as a man of what kind of things that we're expected to do to kind of sometimes challenge those stereotypes and go against it. Because I think it's super important to be your own person and not do what society tells you to do. So thank you very much. Thank you.